Hello everyone and welcome back to the Simple Game Dev. Now in the previous video we left off with this box that opens and closes, but that's pretty much it. It just opens and closes, right? And what we want to do in this video is to create the actual prefab that the spawner is going to spawn so that the game can continue doing its thing, right? So let's start by grabbing the surprise box that we have, which, by the way, it's still just a mesh and an animation and things like that. Now what I like to do with my prefabs is normally I create an empty game object so that all the objects required to make that prefab can be inside of it. And if you want to change, let's say, the size of it, or maybe just change some components inside, you are doing it like by blocks, I guess, because it's easier to just change the entire parent, right? So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna create a game object, and I'm gonna call it surprise box prefab. And I'm gonna zero it out. You can do it like manually typing hit 000, or you can go to this little icon here and set and click on reset. That will reset everything to 000 in rotation position, and a scale will be 1. So let's start by grabbing our surprise box model with the animator and all the things that we previously did, and drag it inside our box prefab. Now, since we're doing prefabs, I already have a way of working that I mentioned before. I try to keep things organized. So I'm going to create a new folder called Prefabs. And what we're going to do is grab the parent, the surprise box prefab. If you notice, it's a black color right now because it's just a game object that exists in our scene. But if we grab it and drag it into prefabs folder, it automatically creates a prefab, which is basically a clone if you want to call it that way. And now notice that it turned blue because now it's telling you, okay, I'm a game object, but I am just a copy of a game object that you already have somewhere in your assets. So yeah, that's the basics of prefabs. And prefabs are there because sometimes you want to make, let's say, an object that maybe you use a lot of times, like a street lamp or something like that. And let's say if you change something inside the prefab, then all the ones inside will change with it, right? Because they're just clones of the original. So it's pretty handy if you have things like this. Let's say if I change something in this prefab and then apply, then it will change all the other clones. We're not going to do that right now because really we don't have anything. So I'm going to grab the prefab again. And if we go to our file, we can see what, give me a second, if I can find it, show guides. Okay, so if we take a look at our surprise box and what its behavior is, we can see and we can have an idea of what we're going to need. So it needs to find a spawner, wait, and endpoints, which is this one and this one, which we already have in the scene. Move towards the wait point and wait. So it will move from whichever point in space it is right now. It will move to this point. Then we'll animate to show its contents. In this case, it's going to open up. However, right now it doesn't have anything, right? It's just our empty box. So in order to do that, we are going to need to spawn the bump or vegetable in this prefab, right? So in order to do this, we are going to need another empty game object, which I am going to call pickup position. Pickup underscore position. As you can see, it's inside the prefab, and I'm going to position it roughly, I don't know, somewhere around here maybe. And basically this point is going to be the point in space in which we are going to instantiate or create out of thin air whichever item is inside. Now it's going to be a random thing, so we don't know what's going to be inside of this yet, right? That's why I didn't put just let's say a carrot in there, because we want it to be dynamic. So I'm going to leave that pickup position, and in order to make it easier to see, I'm just going to put one of these little icons. Actually, let's grab this one, pickup position, so that we can see what it is, okay? Now, any changes that would you make, as I mentioned before, if I drag another surprise box here, notice how the new one doesn't have the pickup position, right? It's because I haven't applied it yet. So if I go to this pickup position, I mean this surprise box prefab, and hit apply, it will turn blue again because this was not blue yet, meaning that it was changed. There was a change in the prefab that wasn't saved yet. But look at this. Now our copy of the prefab is exactly the same as this one. So it doesn't matter if you have them on the scene or inside one of your folders. As soon as you hit apply, it will apply those changes to your prefab and all its copies. So what else do we need? Okay, let's go back to our file here. So it needs to animate and show its contents. Okay, we're gonna work on that in a bit. Move towards endpoint, tell the spawner to spawn the next box, and destroy itself. Okay, so it seems that we are right in time to start some scripting. So let's go to our scripts folder, right click inside of it, and create a C# script. And we're gonna call this one surprise box. Okay. And I'm going to grab the surprise box script that we just made and put it in our prefab. Now, don't put it on the model. Put it in on the prefab itself, on the parent. And let's double click on it. And this is what we get, our friendly blank script. Now, what are we going to need for this? It needs to find the spawner, wait, and endpoints. Okay, so that sounds like we can do it on the start method. Find and wait and endpoints. Wait and endpoints. Now, I usually start by commenting the actions that I want a game object to do before actually starting coding, because it's easier to just see if you're doing it properly, or if you think you might find something weird, or before actually starting coding, right? So just put the things that you want to make, like in bullet points, just like I did here. And it will be easier to arrange if you need to move anything. So it needs to move towards the wait and endpoint. Okay. Move towards wait point. And I believe it needs to wait towards the wait point and wait. Wait for X amount of seconds. Then it has to animate and show its contents. Right? And again, after that, it will have to move towards the endpoint. Move towards endpoint. Tell the spawner to spawn the next box, and then finally destroy itself. Tell the spawner to spawn the next box, and then destroy itself. Now that's it. That's all we need to do here. Now I put it currently on the start, but it doesn't mean we cannot change it. Depending on how our script is, let's say, being created, because I like to move things around depending on if I find that there's a better way. I don't mind just grabbing the entire block and moving it around. So I'm going to destroy this update for now. And I'm going to pause the video for a second. Okay, sorry about that. I had to mute my phone because it was being very annoying. But we're back now, and we are going to continue with our script. Let's open up our script. And let's start by adding the variables that we are going to need. So let's see. We need a public float for the move time. Right now, let's say it's going to be 1.5 seconds. We need another public float wait time, which is going to be the time that the box needs to wait. I'm still going to keep that as 1.5 float. Then we need a reference, public animator, a public reference of our animator. It doesn't have to be public, but I like to keep things public for now so that it's easier to see in the inspector. So our animator, and I'm going to call this box animator. Then another public game object. Now we use brackets, and what is this? It's basically it's just like saying it's a public game object, but instead of being a variable for one game object, it's an array of many game objects, and that is going to be bums and veggies. So we're probably not going to do that in this video, but I'm still going to leave those variables up there because I know we're going to be needing them. So in this case, we are going to actually let me show it to you. I'm going to save this script, give it a second, and then you will see our variables appearing because since we set them to public, you can see them in the inspector. So this buns and veggies, it's an array of game objects that later on we are going to fill up with our prefabs for bums and vegetables, the pickup items that the players will grab. And as you can see, you can set whichever number of game objects you want, and that's it. It's pretty cool, so that we know when the time comes that they are there, so that we can grab one of them randomly and appear inside of the box. So the next thing that we need is a public reference transform, and this transform is going to be our pickup position, which is the empty game object that we added on top of the box. I'm gonna make it one game object spawned item, and a transform. I was forgetting about the most important ones. The middle position position and the end position, right? Because we need to find the weight and end point. Well, I just changed the name here, but it doesn't matter. And now we have all our variables there. Pick a position, the weight. There's an error here. Is there an error? Oh, it's because I didn't make them public. And I'm gonna move this one down a bit. So public variables, yay. And now we can see our pickup, middle position, and end position. See? It seems that's all we need for setting this up. Now, if we revive our spawner for a second, I'm gonna move the box prefab out of the way. Now, let's say that we want to grab the reference to those positions, right? So, let's see. We have our surprise box prefab selected, and I'm gonna drag and drop the weight point to the middle position and end position, and then I'm gonna save or apply these changes. Okay, then I'm going to destroy our prefab, and I'm going to grab another prefab from our prefabs folder. So what do you think it's gonna happen? Do you think it will hold the reference to it? Well, guess what? They don't. And the reason is because this surprise box prefab wasn't created really here until we drag and drop it. So you can't really put a reference to any object that it's already in the scene to a game object that is just a prefab that it's going to appear later on. It doesn't work like that. So I just wanted you to see that. So because we need to grab these positions when the game starts. So let me see how much time it's been. Maybe I should cut the video right here, and we can continue with this prefab on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.